everyone. I'm Major General Garrett Yee, Assistant to the Director of the Defense Information Systems Agency. As many of you know, May is Asian American Pacific Islanders, or AAPI month. It's a time we put aside to focus on what people from backgrounds similar to mine contribute to the overall American culture. They are U.S. citizens who trace their lineage back to places like Japan, China, Taiwan, Korea, Indonesia, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, the Philippines, Samoa, Fiji, Guam, and the Northern Marianas. Oftentimes, people outside the AAPI community think that this is a month for Asians to celebrate our cultures. Not exactly. What we are celebrating is what Asians and Pacific Islanders have added to the overall American culture. Imagine an America without Asian restaurants, martial arts, the musical genius of Yo-Yo Ma, fashion designer Vera Wang, Olympic figure skater Kristi Yamaguchi, Medal of Honor recipient and Senator Daniel Inouye, Yahoo founder Jerry Yang, or any of the 23 million Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders that contribute to America's workforce and fight in our wars. And while we are proud of where we come from, we are, after all, Americans first. A nation of people from all around the world coming together to form something unique, something greater than just the sum of our parts, a diverse group of people united by a common cause. That has never been more true than it was in the days, weeks, and months following the terrorist attack of 9/11. Those of us who lived through the time remember the streets lined with American flags flown in front of homes from coast to coast. Strangers on the street began thanking military members for their service, and people being just a little nicer to one another. But we've been through a lot since then. 20 years of war, 3 presidents, 1 global pandemic. It feels like we've lost some of that collective kindness. Since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, extremists around the world have begun using the disease as justification for racially motivated violence. According to a recent study conducted at California State University, San Bernardino, anti-Asian hate crimes in the United States have increased nearly 150% in the years since the pandemic began. Much of the violence in the news is directed towards Chinese Americans due to the possible linkage of COVID-19's origination. Even more disturbing is the fact that the majority of the violence is directed towards the elderly, many of whom are not even Chinese descent, let alone ever visited that country. But this is not who we are as a nation. America is a nation of immigrants. America was founded on the principles of freedom and equality. As military members and federal employees, we take an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. What makes our oath unique is that it is not to a person, like other countries around the world, but to an idea. That idea is that all people are created equal. We pledge our loyalty to the Constitution of the United States, a document created to establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility. America's strength comes from our ability to learn from one another, to gather the best parts of every culture and add them to our collective culture. Our citizens are not Asian Americans, or European Americans, or African Americans. We are Americans, a blend of many cultures, and we are better for that. Since World War II, many members of my family served in the United States military. My uncle Jimmy Eno was awarded a Purple Heart when he was wounded in Europe fighting with the famed 442nd Regimental Combat Team, an all-Japanese American Army unit. My Aunt Sue Kumagai was one of the first Asian American females to reach the rank of colonel when she served in the Army during the Vietnam War. In total, more than a dozen members of my immediate family donned the uniform of the United States military, each of them paving a way for the generation of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines that followed. My story is only one of thousands that can only be told by members of our workforce. Throughout the month of May, DISA will be showcasing stories that highlight the Asian American and Pacific Islanders throughout the agency. Individuals who bring unique perspectives to our team through their history, culture, and contributions to the overall culture of this great nation. I hope that you will take a few minutes out of your busy day to check them out. Have a great day, and thank you for all that you do for our nation.
Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, or AAPIs, have served in the United States military in nearly every armed conflict since the founding of our nation. Yet, where are they in the pages of our history? By highlighting their stories, our nation becomes more whole in understanding the patriotism and impact of the AAPI community. The story goes all the way back to the Battle of New Orleans during the War of 1812, where Filipinos joined the U.S. Army in manning defensive batteries against the British. During the Civil War, our nation was divided over the issue of slavery. As an integral part of the American fabric, AAPIs fought on both sides of the Civil War, with Chinese Americans serving in both the Union and the Confederacy. In the face of discrimination under the Chinese Exclusion Act, Chinese Americans served their nation in the Mexican Expedition of 1916. As the world plunged into World War I, many Asian Americans joined the U.S. Army, including Bhagat Singh Thind, an Indian American of Sikh faith. He was loyal and very patriotic, yet he was denied citizenship by the U.S. Supreme Court. Then, in 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. As a result, President Roosevelt authorized the detainment of 120,000 Japanese Americans to incarceration camps. To fight against public distrust, 30,000 Nisei or second-generation Japanese Americans enlisted during World War II. The 100th Infantry Battalion and later the 442nd Regimental Combat Team remains the most decorated unit in U.S. military history.
You fought not only the enemy, but you fought prejudice, and you won.
As a colony, the Philippines allied with America. The United States Armed Forces of the Far East enlisted nearly 250,000 Filipinos, a decisive move that helped win the Pacific Theater. For their valor, Filipinos were promised citizenship and military benefits, yet they couldn't claim them after passing of the Rescission Act. With the repeal of the Chinese Exclusion Act, 13,000 Chinese Americans enlisted to fight for their nation. The Women's Army Corps also recruited Chinese and Japanese Americans to support military intelligence efforts. Hazel Ying Lee broke gender and ethnic barriers as one of the first Chinese Americans in the Women Air Force Service pilots. Ultimately, the outstanding performance of segregated minority units like the Tuskegee Airmen, the Native American Code Talkers, and the famed Nisei Warriors led the Department of Defense to review its policies on minorities serving in the military. The reviews led to the gradual integration of the U.S. military. After World War II, a large number of AAPI recruits and combat veterans continued to serve with fervor. U.S. military bases in the Philippines recruited Filipinos. At one point, there were more Filipinos in the U.S. Navy than the Philippine Navy. In the Korean War, Major Kurt Chuen Lee and Colonel Young Ok Kim broke barriers of segregation by respectively becoming the first Marine officer of Chinese descent and first Korean American to lead the combat battalion. In the 1950s and 60s, AAPIs assumed greater roles and acceptance in American society and culture. Medal of Honor recipient and World War II hero Daniel K. Inouye was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives and later became a U.S. Senator. As the Vietnam War intensified, AAPI soldiers answered the call of duty, and some made the ultimate sacrifice. Like many Americans, AAPI soldiers, veterans, and civilians felt conflicted about this controversial and long-standing war. By the 1970s, a wave of Asian immigrants resulted in more enlistments in the U.S. Armed Services. With the passing of the United States Refugee Act, Vietnamese refugees were able to immigrate to the United States and enlist in the U.S. Armed Forces. A powerful reminder that immigrants built our nation through service. As we remember the tragic events of 9/11, we also honor the thousands of AAPIs, citizens and immigrants alike, who have answered the call to serve since that tragic day. Today, over 65,000 AAPIs serve in the United States military, reflecting their unparalleled contribution to America's national security. With a legacy of honor, their sense of patriotism is unwavering. They serve and respond to humanitarian crises, conflicts on distant shores, and natural disasters in communities. Our nation's strength truly rests in our diversity.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. The ceremony will begin momentarily. Please silence all personal electronic devices. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Major General Patrick J. Donahoe, the United States Army Maneuver Center of Excellence, and the 316th Cavalry Brigade, we welcome you to the 2021 Fort Benning Heritage Month celebration. The theme to this year's observance is Advancing Leaders Through Purpose-Driven Service. Please stand for the national anthem and remain standing for the invocation given by the chaplain of the 3rd Squadron, 16th Cavalry Regiment, Chaplain Karen B. Berger. The 316th Cavalry Brigade would like to present the 2021 Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. The Department of Defense joins the nation in paying tribute to the Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and Native Hawaiians who demonstrated selfless service and sacrifice in the U.S. Army, U.S. Army Reserve, Air Force, Marine Corps, Navy, Coast Guard, National Guard, both past and present. On December 7, 1941, the United States joined World War II as a response to the bombing of Pearl Harbor in Hawaii by the Japanese. On February 19, 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, preventing espionage on American shores. Over 14,000 men, Nisei volunteers, were assigned to segregated Japanese-American unit, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, and the 100th Infantry Battalion. By July 26, 1941, more than 260,000 Filipino and Filipino-American soldiers served during the war. Asian Pacific American women first entered military service during World War II. Over 50 Japanese American and Chinese American women were recruited by the Women's Army Corps and sent to Military Intelligence Service Language School at Fort Snelling, Minnesota for training as military translators. The service of Asians, Pacific Islanders, and Native Hawaiians before and during World War II paved the way for future generations of men and women to join what would become, in 1948, a desegregated U.S. military. The United States remains forever indebted to the World War II veterans who demonstrated selfless service and sacrifice in defense of global peace and security. We remember the legacy of the greatest generation by honoring the past, securing the future. The 442nd Regimental Combat Team was the most decorated unit for its size and length of service during the entire history of the United States military. In total, about 14,000 men served, ultimately earning 9,486 Purple Hearts, 21 Medals of Honor, and the unprecedented 8 Presidential Unit citations. In 1944, the 100th Infantry Battalion became part of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. Remember Pearl Harbor. That was the motto of the 100th Infantry Battalion. The 100th Infantry Battalion was activated June 12, 1942, composed of more than 1,400 American-born Japanese called Nisei, or second generation. After training at Camp McCoy, Camp Shelby, the battalion deployed to the Mediterranean in August of 1943. The U.S. Army's Philippine Scouts. These were General Douglas MacArthur's soldiers who fought America's first battle of World War II, the Philippine Division. Probably the best trained and possibly the best prepared U.S. Army division at the outset of the war. They were special men in special units, officially designated Philippine Scouts, a term applied to both the Filipino enlisted men and to their American officers. For a young Filipino man, acceptance into the Philippine Scouts was a distinct honor, as was service in the scout units for American officers. The Philippine Scouts, side by side with U.S. National Guard and Philippine Army infantry units, defeated the Japanese Army in numerous actions in the interior and on the coastlines of Bataan. President Franklin Roosevelt awarded the U.S. Army's first 3 Congressional Medals of Honor of World War II to Philippine Scouts. Sergeant Jose Caligas for action at Culis, Bataan on January 6, 1942. Lieutenant Alexander Niniger for action near Abuque, Bataan on January 12th, and Lieutenant Willibald Bianchi for action near Bagak, Bataan on February 3, 1942. Korean augmentation to the United States Army. The Katusa program was initiated during July 1950 by an informal agreement between South Korean President Ri Sing-man and General Douglas MacArthur due to the severe shortage of frontline soldiers. 60 years have passed since the agreement, but the Katusa program still continues due to the commitment for freedom and democracy by both nations. And now a message from Command Sergeant Major Tan Huynh.
All right, aloha everybody. Major General Donahoe, Command Sergeant Major Gardner. So Major Gardner, I hope you and your family are doing well since you left us here in Hawaii. Thank you, Colonel Glass and so Major Tate, today host, for reaching out and for allowing me the opportunity to share my journey to America with everybody. So Major Tate, who's a classmate of mine from USASMA, hope you are doing well as well, especially through this COVID environment. And aloha to everybody, all the leaders and soldiers at Fort Benning. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity today to share my journey. So, my name is Tan Huynh. I was born in Nha Be, Vietnam in 1976, just a little bit after the fall of South Vietnam. My dad was a South Vietnamese soldier, so after the fall of Vietnam, he was captured and put into re-education camp where he spent roughly 8.5 years there. So basically he had to stay there until he give up all the secret that he know about why he was fighting, or accept communism. And basically it's a prison, it's a torture thing and stuff. So after 8.5 years of torturing him and everything else, and I guess they get nothing out of him, so they released him. Now, the first time I remember meeting my father was when I went to visit him when he was in the re-education camp, and he was absolutely beat up, full of bruises and stuff, and that was pretty scary. I was just a young little boy at the time. My mom raised us, 6 of us kids total, by a single, by herself, and you know, as some of you might know, especially in Asian culture at that time in Asia, where the movement does not have the look at the same way as the men and stuff, and then especially to raise 6 kids in the delta of the Mekong Delta is especially hard. So she did just everything that she could to keep us in line and keep us out of trouble, except for me. I tend to find myself into trouble quite a bit. Pretty hard-headed and stubborn, I guess you could say. Well, that's what they would tell you right now. You ask them. Well, all of us kids, we do what we can to help around the family. So there wasn't much right after the Vietnam War, so everything became a co-op. So we worked the farm that we had, but at the end of the year, all the harvest you don't get to keep. Most of it go to whoever they want to take it, kind of take it, and you're left with a little bit, barely enough to scrape by for a month at most. So basically we were starving most of the time. There was very, very limited food and everything else, so you kind of scrounged around. So all of us kids, we've been working since as young as I could remember. As a kid in Vietnam, I was already going down to the jungle, doing the commercial fishing and stuff, just to make a little bit of money and have a little bit of food on the table for our family. But when my dad escaped out, well, when my dad got out of prisons, he decided that he's gonna leave Vietnam for a better future, because there we wasn't even allowed to have educations, allowed to go to school or have any meaningful jobs at all, especially during that time. It was really is tough and really kind of hell on earth, and we were so poor. I mean, the old saying goes, like, we didn't have a pot to piss on, and that was true for our family. So we couldn't even afford the basics needs of like clean water and stuff like that. So it was definitely tough, and my dad said, decided that we gotta leave for our family future. So in September of 1989, when we come to America, we left the refugee camps with nothing but the clothes on our back. Come to America, and we don't know a single thing about America, and we don't have a single family or friends in this country. And when we landed in Iowa, we were shocked how cold it was, because we was wearing I had on short flip-flop and a t-shirt, and it was cold. It was a little bit snowing outside on that night. When we finally make it home to Nevada, Iowa, we had this little house set up with so much food. I had never seen so much food before. So how we come to Iowa is that there are 5 churches in the town of 5,000 people, right smack in central Iowa, and all this lady would play bridges together every week, and they decided to sponsor. They want to sponsor a family, bring them to America, and it just happened to be our family, and so that's how we come to America. And before we arrived, they planned all this stuff, and they coordinated with this Vietnamese restaurant up in Ames by the Iowa State campus, and they had all this egg roll and fried rice and everything. It would just make us feel like home. So when we get there, the house was filled with food, drinks, and everything else. And that night was like I had never tasted Coke, ice cream, milk, or anything until that night. And it was incredible how many people was there welcoming us. So as soon as I come to America, all I knew was the generosity and the love and support of the American people. And to me, like, that's all I have experienced throughout my time as an American. So it's awesome. So that's all I know of the state of Iowa, and is just how friendly people was. And that's why we went to school, and I graduated high school there. And deep down, I always knew I always wanted to be a soldier. I always wanted to serve our country. And why I want to serve our country is that because of a little kid like me that was born and raised in Vietnam, didn't know a single thing about anything else, but I was allowed to come to America, know what freedom was like, and I allowed to make my own choices and have the freedom to express myself as opposed to what would have been in Vietnam. If it wasn't for America, without a doubt, I know I would not be alive today. My grandparents, who I lovingly call my grandparents, basically they took us in on my second year, actually my first summer in Iowa. They volunteered their time to teach us English in the afternoon, and after a couple of days they decided to adopt us, really. So everywhere we go, my grandma Doris and grandpa Truck would say, "Hey, this is our grandkid," and we will always ask them, like, "Oh, are they adopted and where they came from?" And they just say, "Nope, my grandkid," right? And that's it. And they love us unconditionally, like it was their own flesh and blood and stuff. So every summertime, every year when school was done, me and my grandpa, we love fishing and hunting. So as soon as school is out, we would go to Canada and do our own little private fishing up there for a week or so. And grandma was always drive straight from Iowa all the way up to Canada by herself at night. And I'm stay awake, and we'd be talking, she's sharing the story about how she grew up during the depressions and all this stuff, and how my grandpa, through hard work and everything else, to build his own construction business, and stuff, and how he was able to retire a little bit earlier and turn the business over to his son. So that way he's able to go do all the fishing and all that stuff to different countries and take a little vacation. So, and I was very fortunate. I never felt left out. I never felt out of place at all. You know, I love pancakes, so you know, in the winter times, they always pick me up and bring down. We always have fresh pancake and everything else, and every time we go fishing, me and my grandma go fishing, she always make us lunches and stuff. And it was just awesome. It was like I felt nothing but love, unconditional love from them. So I miss them dearly, and I still do. Every time I think about them, I get kind of choked up a little bit. But you know, I joined the Army is because, you know, people like my grandpa, like they show us what's love and what America have to offer. And all you have to do is work hard for it. You know, like my family now, all my family was able to come to America. My mom is here, my brother and sister. My little sister graduated from Iowa State. She had a nursing degree, and she's a registered nurse down in Florida on her own home. My older sister is here. Both their kids, my niece and nephew, graduated from Iowa State University. My brother, both their son and daughter, born here, and you know, my niece just graduated from Iowa State a couple weeks ago, and stuff. So, like, America is the dream for us. Our dream come true. We are living the American dream every day, and that's why I serve, and why I continue to serve is this. You know, like, I never realized this up until about a year ago, when Major General Viet Lương come to my change of responsibility. I asked him if he would, because you know, he's a great senior leader, and he's a Vietnamese American, and he went through a very similar experience as myself. And so he's one of those guys that a lot of us look up to, and I asked him if he would be there, and he showed up, surprisingly, so it was awesome. And you know, one thing he said, like, you know, now that you're a senior guys, like, there's a lot of other people that kind of look up to you. A lot of other kids, regardless of, you know, where they came from, like, you know, it's your responsibility now is to coach and mentor them to reserve America. I mean, we are the reason why America continues to exist. We're the reason why America is a beacon of hope and a beacon of freedom, where everybody coming here want a better life. Because once you come to America, right, you can do whatever you want through hard work and dedications. You know, so, and that's one thing that's always resonated with me throughout my career. And when he reminded me of those things again, and it's so true. So, you know, like, throughout all the time that I've been deployed, and when I was stationed in Honduras, when I see a kids, you know, that's just starving out there, just dirty, filthy, with like snot running down their nose and stuff like that, it reminds me of myself when I was a kid, growing up in Vietnam. I was exactly the same. I'm like, man, I'm thinking to myself, like, is this what it was like when American soldiers didn't know what Vietnam was, come to Vietnam and fought to defend South Vietnam freedom and stuff. And here I am as an American soldier in a foreign land, trying to do the same thing for them, right? And stuff. So it's kind of brought a close circle, I guess you could say. So every time I deploy overseas, I always share the story of America, the story of my grandpa truck and grandma doors with everybody. Because I think there's so much goodness, and as from my personal experience, I experienced nothing but love and generosity and support. So whenever I go, I want to share that story of America with everybody, about how great we are and stuff. And you know, and up to, you know, my intention of when I joined the Army was just 100% resolute to join and defend our country, so that someday maybe another young kid like myself will get to enjoy America, will get to enjoy freedom, and know what freedom is really like. The ability to express your opinion, the ability to vote and pick your leader without fear, and the ability, if you're elected official and not doing anything, and you can speak out against them without being killed and stuff, is absolutely amazing. Because Growing in Vietnam at the time, like that was not possible, and it's still not possible. So that's why I joined Army, and that's why I continue to serve our Army. So as I reflect back to all the adversity that I faced growing up in Vietnam and coming to America with a whole different country, new culture and language barrier and everything else, what made me successful is basically kind of like MRT. So I was doing MRT before the Army doing MRT. So I learned how to be perseverance. You got to learn how to be tough and resilient. And you always got to look out for the bright things. So no matter how bad the situation is, there's always something bright, something good to look at. And I learned that you got to survive in this world. You have a lot of grits. No matter how bad it is, it's not going to last forever. That's the light at the end of the tunnel. I learned that if I want something, I had to work hard for it. So through all this adversity, that's what made me a better soldier, make me a better leader. Because of all the tough training that I've been through in the Army and everything else, I always kind of compare to some of the situations that I've been through in life as a kid, growing up in Vietnam and growing up here in America and stuff. And honestly, like I truly appreciate all the adversity that I had growing up, because I don't think I would be where I am in my career right now if it wasn't for all those things that I went through when I was younger. So I use all those techniques and all those tools that I have to make me a better soldier and better leader. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you. It's been a privilege and honor for allowing me to share my journey to America and why I serve and continue to serve in America. Thank you.